guys know that Josephine Baker is
That's
the
something you
richest
want?
black woman. Please don't you guys know that Black America used to be called Turtle Island.
You want to hear a story? I read a story. I know a story. I got a story for you. So what you gotta do is without the night was cold. Hey, what up, Vibe Tribe? Welcome to The Real Talk TV. I'm your girl, Lovely Vibes, and thank you for tuning into my channel. Now, if you have not subscribed yet, take some time. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button. Stay with us. See what we're talking about. Come and talk with us. Share with us. All right, hit that subscribe button as well as the like button. You like it? Just like it. Like it. All right, and be sure to leave comments in the comment section. Also, give your opinions. Let's talk about what we're talking about in these videos. Go ahead and keep it real in that section, okay? Also, keep it really respectful. And if you are a returning subscriber, thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys so very much. I appreciate you. We have plenty coming up for you guys, like I said, and stay tuned, you guys. This is going to be a wonderful ride. So thank you guys for rocking with me. I appreciate you. All right. I hope you guys been having a wonderful week, a wonderful day, wonderful hour, seconds, you know. You know what I do here? I read a story, a short story, sometimes a little longer than that. But I come back and I tell you about what I read. Okay. So then we get in that comment section and then we talk about it. We talk about what we read. So today we're going to talk about a story called People of the Dark. Dum, 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 by Robert Aaron Howard back in 1932. All right, so this is called, once again, People of the Dark. All right, interesting story. So let's get into it, you guys, and let's talk about it. Here we go. All right, so it starts off. This guy, he goes to an island, or he goes to an island, and he goes to Dragon Cave. He's on his way to Dragon Cave, or came to Dragon Cave, because he really wants to kill a man named Richard Brent. He really doesn't like this guy, Richard Brent. So he's there and on the island and to get this guy. So he finds out from this English crew that Richard Brent, that he finds out that he's on his way to this Dragon Cave, right? So to explore it. So he wants to beat him there because he really wants to kill Richard Brent. He doesn't like Richard Brent because of the fact of a female named Eleanor Bland. He's in love with Eleanor Bland, and he really wants Eleanor Bland, but he feel like he have to get rid of Richard Brent, so he wants to kill him. So he's on his way on this island to Dragon Cave. So as he's approaching Dragon Cave, you know, he feels like things are a little familiar, but you know, whatever. So he goes into Dragon Cave, and he realizes, he's sure that they're not there yet. So that Richard Brent has not come in. That Richard Brent hasn't come to the cave yet. So he hasn't came and explored yet. So he's like, I can get ready. Because when he's thinking of Eleanor, he's putting his hands on his revolver. Because he's mad. He's like, man, I got a lot of love for this woman. And, you know, somebody got to get out the way. If she can't make the decision, I'm going to make it easier for the both of us, you know. So that's how he was feeling. You know, he felt like he's not a bad guy. It's just where he came from, or how he grew up. Men took what they want. So he was using this as an excuse, and so he felt like he wasn't a bad guy. He just wanted to go and kill Richard. Like, that's not bad, but he wants to go get Richard. So he goes in this cave so he can prepare. As he's going through the cave, it feels familiar to him, as I said. So he's feeling like it's familiar, but he's like, you know, he felt like he's used to being in caves. So this cave was just another cave, just like in the Americas, in America, Southern America, where he grew up at, So he's like, oh, okay, this is a cave. Is really, it's just a cave. It's a different cave because he felt like the way that it was structured was different. He felt like a lot of things were not natural, meaning, somebody carved it out. So he's like, okay, this is a familiar cave, but at the same time, it's a cave. I've been into a lot of caves, so that's why it's familiar. So he goes a little into the cave and this is an abandoned cave. That's a story throughout the land. Of this cave is told about children of the dark who live in this cave, and this was ancient old stories, So by this time, the cave is, of course, it's a fairy tale. It's a legend. So the cave is obviously empty. So he's in the cave, you know, thinking about these stories, but also like, okay, those are stories. So he goes through the cave, right? So he's going through the caves. He's seeing hieroglyphics on the wall. He's looking at the hieroglyphics like they're weird. He saw creatures on these hieroglyphics, and he's like, this is some strange looking stuff, but oh well. So he keeps going, and he saw this with his torch, because he took a torch with him, his electric torch. So he turns off his torch, and then he continues walking, and he gets to another chamber. So he's in that chamber, and in that chamber he's feeling like it's familiar again, but he's like, okay, whatever, chalking that up, right? So for some reason, I don't know why he turned off his lamp, but it had his lamp off for a second. So he goes, and when he gets to a certain doorway or open doorway, he sees some steps in like a sort of a hidden door type, so he sees some steps, I guess like a false door. So he goes to the steps, and these steps are like little half steps there. They call them dwarfish steps. In the story, it's called the dwarfish steps. So it's not full steps for a full foot, so he's like, okay. So he going down these steps, while he's thinking about getting the guy Richard and Eleanor. He's on his mission. So he's going down the steps. He's on his mission. Like, yeah, I'm got to set stuff up. So mind you, the woman he's in love with, Eleanor has golden wavy hair and gray eyes, right? So he would say her eyes would change like the mystics of the sea. So he was in love with Eleanor. So he's thinking about her as he's going down these steps, her and Richard, and this triangle of love that he's just like, obviously he felt like he needed to settle this. So he's on his way down these steps, and he tumbles and falls. He falls hard and hits the ground hard. So as he's laying on the ground, he's like, he feels discombobulated, and everything is everywhere, and he feels like he's kind of out of it, and he's trying to come to. So he touches his head, and his head is like, caked with blood. So he has this blood on his head, and he's like, oh man, he's hurt. So he doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know where he is, what time. He just having a hard time, right? So finally he slowly starts coming to. He sees a sword in front of him. So he's like, the sword is like stained with blood. So it's the sword's been used, and his hands fit perfectly around the sword. And he's looking at his massive body, and he has black maned hair. So he's rubbing his hands through his hair, and he's like, oh, okay, now I remember. Okay, I'm Conan. So I'm Conan the Reaver. So I got something to do. I remember why I came here. So he starts remembering why he came there. So he remembered that him and his crew came to the island. And when they came to they came to raid the island. So coming to raid the island they raided this island off and on. So the men, women, and children, even the warriors on this island, were scattering to the trees. They took off running on this island because the black-haired Gale was there. So this is where Conan is from, the black-haired Gale. So Conan, being from the black-haired Gale, he's like, okay, I remember what happened. And I got onto the island, and everybody scattered, and I'm chasing the female that I love, the female that I saw and care about. So this female, her name was Tamara. He knew her name was Tamara because he had been on that island in times of peace before, and so he's like, I'm chasing Tamara through the woods. So he chased Tamara through the woods while everybody's scattered. And usually the soldiers don't run and chase those fleeing into the woods usually. So, but he chose to chase Tamara because he really was in love with Tamara. So Conan is chasing Tamara into the woods. She's running as fast as she can, and he's running after her. He's on her heels. So then he gets in front of this large cavern, like a large opening cave type entrance. He grabs her by the hair. He catches her. So when he grabs her by her wavy hair and pulls her, she starts screaming. So she's screaming, ah! She starts screaming, Vaderix! So she's screaming, ah! She's screaming, she's attacked. And as soon as she says Vaderix jumps out and attacks Conan. So him and Conan are fighting. Conan is pissed off because he's mad because he know that this guy is her lover from the way that she screamed. So he's really mad because he's been chasing her because he wants her. He wants her really bad, and she got a lover, so he's mad. So he wants to kill the lover, So him and Vaderix is fighting. So while him and Vaderix is fighting, he's bigger than Vaderix. Him and Vaderix are about the same height, but he's bigger than Vaderix. So his weight was helping in the fight. So Vaderix is fighting him. He's screaming to Tamara, run, while he's fighting Conan. So he's like, run. She's like, I won't leave you. I'm not going to leave you. So while he's fighting, so she says, into the caves, let's go into the caves. So Vaderix starts screaming, no, anywhere but there, no, while he's fighting, And she's like, it's our only chance, our only way. And he's like, no, because their people had stories for ancient times. They've had stories of those caves and the people that lived in those caves, so the children of the dark that lived in those caves. So they had stories about that. So he's like screaming, no, don't go into the caves, while he's fighting Conan. And he was like, better a clean death than to experience that and just run. So she's like, no, I'm not going to leave you. So she shoots past him and Conan into the cave. So Conan sees her run past them into the cave. She ran fast. So he's like, and at the same time, Vaderix, he took a mighty swing with all his might and he almost got Conan, but Conan, he like dodged it. So by him dodging it and Vaderix using all his might to back him off of him, Vaderix took off running. So he runs into the cave after Tamara. So they run into the darkness of the cave. So then Conan, he's like really angry. So he runs into the cave after them because, of course, he wants Tamara. So he goes into the cave after them. Once he goes into the cave, he's thinking, I wasn't even thinking like he could jump out on me from anywhere. But he said that he can kind of in front of him see that it was an opening and saw like white shoot past, white disappear into like a corridor, like into the background. And then so he went to that door. So when he went to that door, then the axe swung at him because Vaderix has been fighting him with an axe. It's a nice axe. So he's been fighting him with a big, hefty axe. That's what he was fighting him with outside the cave. So he swings out of the dark with this axe at Conan. So him and Conan are banging. They fighting. So while they're fighting, is no way out of... Conan is blocking the entrance. So it's no way out of that cave. So while Vaderix is fighting Conan, Tamara is like trying to find a way out. Like she's panicking. Like there's no way out. And Conan, knowing this, he's like, okay, he can't really get at the Briton. He can't really get at him because of his advantage from the doorway he was standing in fighting with Conan versus Conan. He can handle him, but he couldn't go really forward So, and at the same time, he knew if he moved out the way, that they can get away. So his whole focus is to make sure that they don't get out of this room, or get past him to leave out of the cave. So she's like, I gotta find a way out. And then so she starts looking around the room while him and Vaderix are still fighting. Conan and Vaderix are still fighting. So she finds some type of hidden false door. So she goes through or another corridor. So she goes running through, and when she went running through, she starts screaming. You hear you hear this crazy helpless scream. So she's screaming, and Vaderix, he starts screaming when he hear her scream in the dark. So when he starts screaming, Conan is like, he forgot that I was there. He just starts screaming and took off running into the darkness where Tamara's voice was coming from, where she was screaming. So Vaderix is like, no, he takes out, no, no. So he goes looking for Tamara. So he run after Tamara, and Conan is looking like, oh, so he gonna act like I'm not here? So he don't know what she was screaming about, because he's like, that was a weird scream. But he takes that off after them. So when he takes off after them, Conan is looking for them. He ends up in another corridor. So when he's on his way to this other room or other corridor while he's chasing Vaderix, who's chasing Tamara, Conan falls down the steps. Some tiny little steps. So he falls down the steps, crashes his head real bad, boom, at the bottom of the steps. So he gets up, his head is caked with blood. So he's like, okay, what in the world? So he gets up, and then he's looking for Tamara and Vaderix again, So he's looking for them, and then he notices while he's looking for them, and he walks into another room, like he slips on a big smear of something. So he has no light at this time. So when he smells blood, when he walks over the smear and he's smelling blood, he's like, oh, something happened here, like something crazy. Either the young Briton is dead, or he killed something. So he didn't know which one it was or what had happened. But at that moment, he found another corridor. So at that moment, he started thinking, why should I even go any further? But his curiosity to know what was in that cave, or what type of beings was in that cave, as well as his love for Tamara, which he said he did love. It's written he did love Tamara. He loved her. He said it was his own way. It was in his own way how much he loved and cared for her. And if he would have got her back to his home, he would have been nice to her. He would have been very nice to her. But he just wanted her because he knew in the times of war and siege and things like that, it was trade going on. So I guess he thought he was gonna trade for this woman. I don't know, but so he's looking for so he sees that they're not in that corridor, and he smells that blood, and he's like, okay, he don't know what happened, but he's looking for Tamara, and he want to see what's in this cave. So he goes further in. So when he goes further in and goes through another corridor, something slashes at him. He hears hissing, and then something slashes at his thigh savagely. So he hurry up and thrusts back blindly, because he can't see. It's dark in this room. And he blindly thrusts back, and he hears something thump on the ground. So he knows he's hit it. He knows that he's got something. But the way that it hissed, he's like, what? That can't be a human, So the way it hissed, but he knew it had to be some type of human form, because it cut him with a knife, But the skin didn't feel right. It just wasn't right. So he's like, what the heck? So he proceeds on past this, because he hears hissing even further. He hears hissing noises ahead of him. So he's hearing more hissing noises, and he's like, oh snap, okay, more hissing noises. I already just killed something and I can't see. So he's hearing more hissing noises. So he goes on further in, and it opens up to another corridor, a larger one, and it's pitch black still again. He almost trips over some stairs again, and almost fall again, but he caught himself, goes down the stairs, and as he's going in this corridor, he sees that there's an altar, a black altar that is covered in phosphate. So it's kind of, so it's glowing in the dark. It's covered with all this phosphate. It's an altar that's glowing in the dark. And he's like, whoa, is that the ancient with the black stone on it? He's like, is that the ancient stone that, they've been told about for eons, and that certain people, children of the dark or children of the night, that they praise and worship, and they kneel at this altar is weird. So he sees that. And then while he sees that, he's still steady hearing hissing noises still coming his way. So when he looks down by the altar, he sees a form, a white form as well, and it's Tamra. So he sees the form. He sees Tamra. She's tied up. She's hog-tied. Her, and next to her is Vaderix. He's hog-tied as well, and his axe is in front of him, blood-stained, because he was obviously getting it through this cave, trying to get to Tamra and protect her. But, so he sees them both there, tied up. And then as soon as he sees them, they're both tied up on the ground, he looks a little ways over, and it is a ghastly, he said, ghastly figure. It's a ghastly form in front of them. So, and he's like, looking at this like, oh my gosh. So he explained it having yellow slanted eyes with the flat nose, and his skin was like dreadful skin. I don't know. The skin wasn't of a human skin, but at the same time, it was like a deformed human. He was describing it as a human who has been in the depths of the earth so long that they kind of morphed and evolved to this weird looking creature, right? So he's like, what in the world? So when he sees that and he hears the hissing sounds coming even closer, so he realizes, I gotta free Vaderix. So I free Vaderix and we can fight our way out. So he realized they have to have an alliance. So he's like, all right, I'm gonna create an alliance. Here is either the hissing or is Vaderix. So he cuts Vaderix loose, Vaderix and Tamra loose. Vaderix immediately understands that it's an alliance now. They know it's an alliance, so they together. So he tells Vaderix, all right, look, let's go. We gonna go. We gonna have to fight our way out, and better. Basically, they got to fight their way out. So they know Vaderix is basically like, say no more, and so they try to lead out of that room because Vaderix was like, we can't go the way that we came in. We can't, because obviously those things was coming from their way. So they couldn't go the way they was coming in, so they decided to go another way. So when they're going up went out of the corridor into another, I guess, hallway. So they're going up this cave hallway, and it's getting a little more narrower and narrower. And there's nothing in front of them, but it's all this hissing coming behind them. So they're chasing them, Okay, they're going through the hallway. So once they go through the hallway, and it opens up a little bit, right? So when it opens up a little bit, they see a little light, and then it goes and leads into a corridor, which is dark again. So then Conan turns around. He's like, forget it, it's too dark. So he turns around. He wants to go to where the little light was that he had, that they had saw, and he wants to fight. He wants to stand his ground there. So he tells him, take her and go. I'm finna fight. I'm finna go back to that part. They got the light and fight, and better this way, because I could see what's coming at me. He didn't want to be walking around in the dark and steady trying to fight these things. So Vaderix is like, okay, well, we gonna do this together, because they were feeling kind of doomed. Everybody's feeling doomed, like they can't get out. So he's like, no, we're gonna do this together. Let's fight. He's like, better to die here, standing as a man, basically, than to run off. So Conan tells Vaderix, okay, stand behind me with Tamra. Stand behind me, and if I go down, bash her head in, and that way she don't got to worry about them catching her. You don't got to worry about them catching her. And then he told him to try to sell your life for whatever you can to try to get out of this, or if they kill you, they kill you. So Vaderix is like looking like, all right, it's all good, it's understood. So these things come rushing at them through the corridor. So when they're coming, Conan starts screaming. He screams like a manly scream that's for the that he said his gods can hear, that his God can hear. So he screams it and he charges at him, and he starts, the first one to come at him, he slashes his head. It is like an arch of blood just flying past him. He slices his head off, and he's swinging, and he's fighting him. He's killing them. So he taking them out left and right. Then finally it gets to a point where it's too many, and the sheer weight of them just gets him down. So the weight gets Conan down, and he's down. So he's like, know that he's finna die. So he's like, okay, they got me. And all of a sudden he hears a swing, a swoosh and a swing, and it's Vaderix getting them up off of him. So he's like, get up. So he get them up off of him. So they get off of Conan. So Conan get up. And by so many bodies that they drop, these things are having a hard time getting to them. So Vaderix and Conan and Tamara, everybody takes off running again. So they running through the halls and the corridors trying to get away. So they feel like there's no way out. They got to keep going down. They're trying to find steps that go up. They find some that go up, but then they find a lot more going down. So they're like, crap. So they're going down further and further. And then, so they get to another corridor. It's a lot of corridors. Just imagine if you are a race of beings living in the middle of the earth, or living in the earth, of course you're going to make you a nice size home, or a nice size honeycomb, because this place is made like honeycomb type dwelling, right? So they're running. So when they're running, all of a sudden Conan gets attacked from the back. So when he gets attacked from the back, he gets attacked by one of the creatures from the back. And Tamara nor Vaderix notices this. They still running. So Conan is back fighting this thing while them two took off and disappeared into the dark. Conan slays what got him, and he's hurt really bad, but he slays it. And then he's thinking, man, they ran on. He don't know which way they went, because it was a chamber leading to the right and a chamber leading to the left. He don't know which way they went. So, and he know that they don't notice that he's not with them no more. So he's like, crap, I don't know what to do. And I'm hurt really bad. So instead of laying there and dying, because he was wounded very badly, he's like, all right, I'm going to get up and I'm going to be on my journey. So he made the decision to go left. So he goes left. And when he goes left, he's walking on for a while. He's wondering about Tamara and Vaderix, wondering if they, where did they end up, and hoping that they find a way out. And so while he's walking on his journey, he's just thinking about Tamara. So he wished that he could find Tamara so because he would rather die alongside of her. I know, right? He would rather die alongside the woman he does not know, but he love her, but he don't know her like that. So he wants to find her and Vaderix, but even though Vaderix is with her, he just wants to die next to her. So he hears running water. So he hears this running water. So he's trying to find the sound of like the rushing water, and water is dripping on his head. So now he knows that he's right up under the water, whatever is wherever it's coming from. So he walks a little further, and he ends up on a cliff, like a ledge on a cliff. And while he's seeing out this cliff, he can see the water down below, the river rushing by, the big river just rushing by. So he sees it down below, and he's looking like, oh man, he's up pretty high. And so from that part, he's like, okay. So he wants to try to find some way around, or, through the sides. He's hearing the water, and he sees the sunlight and all this. And so he's steady thinking about Tamara. So, and then he sees another cliff while he's trying to climb his way to find a way up out of there, because he's at a cliff. So obviously it's like right there getting up. So, and while he's climbing his way along the side of this broken bridge, because the bridge used to connect. You can tell that the bridge used to connect from what he described before this tunnel that he came through, that came up under this this bridge before that was even ever built. So he can tell that the cave tunnel used to connect before it was broken off and now a cliff. So as he's looking up at this other cliff that he sees, because he sees the top, he sees that he can get out where he is. So all he has to do is climb to the top, and he's free. But he's steady thinking about Tamara and wondering where they are. So he's trying to decide, should he climb up or should he try to figure out where Tamara is? And he's going on to, while he's making his decision. And at this moment is when he see two figures emerge on the other cliff. And he's looking like, but they're looking like they're trapped. So he notices it's Tamara and Vaderix, and they look trapped. He's looking at him like, oh man, they don't see him. And the water is so loud, they wouldn't be able to hear him. They can't hear him. He can't hear them, So he's just watching. And Vaderix, he comes to the edge of the cliff and he looks down. He notices, it's just a far drop down. And the side that the cliff of Tamara and Vaderix was on was higher. So this cliff was higher than the cliff that he came from. It was about I think 100 something feet higher, or 40 something feet more higher than the side he came from. So he's watching Vaderix look down like, okay, how are we going to get out of here? And it was no way out on the side that Vaderix and Tamara emerged from. So Vaderix is looking down, then he turns around and Tamara looks at him and she runs up to him and she just, hugs him and smiles at him. So while she hugs and smiles at him, these creatures, these things emerges from the darkness from the cave. So when they're emerging, they're walking up on them while these two were on the ledge, on the edge of this ledge. While the two are on the edge of this ledge and they're looking down, and Tamara hugs him tightly. He grabs Tamara too, and they hug each other tightly. And Vaderix throws his axe into the water, or throws his axe into the great opening of the two cliffs. So it's going down to the water. So as he throws that, and him and Tamara are embracing each other and hugging and smiling at each other, Vaderix, they jump. So he jumps, he takes her, and they're still holding each other on the way down. Conan said they're still holding each other on the way down. So, and they disappear into the water down below. They disappear into what he says is the mist of the water. And he just knew, like, oh, crap. So he finally climbs his way to the top and climbs out. And he's sad. He's obviously he just watched them fall to their death, and he the one who survived. So he climbs to the top of his cliff and he lays there for a second. Then he gets up and he starts stumbling on his way up to stand up, and kind of like disoriented. And okay, now once he stood up, all right, now he remembers he's coming back to himself because he was kind of out of it. When he comes back to, now he realizes he got his hands on his revolver, and he's like, oh man, I bumped my head. I'm John O'Brien. So he remembers he's John O'Brien. So he's like, okay, my head is out of it, and he's back. He's in this chamber inside of the cave. So he's in the chamber inside the cave. He's in the cave. It's John O'Brien, and he starts realizing, but as he touched his head, that he was knocked out, realizing that he has been to that cave before, and he used to be Conan in a previous life. So he's in the new life. He used to be Conan, fell down some steps or whatever. So he's John O'Brien, and he's like, oh man. But he realizes as well, as he's walking out he knocks down the door in the corridor that he was in inside this cave. So he sees the chamber leading up to where he before used to be on the cliff, on the ledge. So when he goes out there, he notices that the water down below, the stream down below, is barely even a creek. It's barely any water coming, because this, of course, is centuries later, or this is time. This is so much time later. So it's no longer rushing water, but it's still a little moist. But there's no rushing water. It's barely trickling, and everything. So he realizes he was Conan in the previous life, and what he had done, and what he'd been through, and that he was of the black-haired Gale. So he's just like taking all this in, and even though he's thinking about Eleanor now, so he's just like, man, he realizes that Eleanor Eleanor was Tamra in the previous life, and Richard was Vaterix as well, and then he was Conan. So as he's like having this hate for Richard and wanting to kill him, he's thinking really hard, and he knows that these creatures are no longer alive in this cave because it's been eons and it's been so long, so it's no more creatures. So he's just in the cave, like, man, thinking really hard, and he hears some voices emerging from the other cliff. So when the voices coming out is Richard and Eleanor, and they're talking, and Richard is cracking jokes. So then Richard looks over the cliff, and when he looks over the cliff, Eleanor like freaks out, and she's like, and she hurry up and run to him, don't do that, and grab him and hugging him and telling him that she has a bad feeling, don't do that. And he's like, calm down, like, we okay on this cliff, like, calm down. And she just like, I don't know what it is. So so John O'Brien is on the other side getting mad, so because he hid in the cave a little bit, so they couldn't see him on the other side, or catch a little glimpse of him on the other side while he was watching them, So while Tamara is explaining to him this feeling of, don't go to the edge of the cliff, don't do this, while she's explaining it to him, while she feels that way, while she's explaining it to him, Richard is asking her, well, who is it? If you don't want to be with me, that's fine. You don't have to be with me. I really care about you a lot. But, if you want to be with John, or B, she's like, it's always been you. She cuts him off. She's like, it's always been you. I want to be with you. She said, I didn't realize it till just now when we looked over this cliff. She was like, when we looked over this cliff, I just had this feeling. She said, it's always been you. We in a and it was like she even knew. She was like, in that life before, she said even John was there, but he wasn't John. She said, you weren't Richard. And she said, and I wasn't Eleanor. She was like, but basically they all crossed paths before. That's how she was feeling. So the guy, Richard, he's happy to hear that she wants to be with him. So they hug and they embrace each other, and they're happy. And John is on the other ledge. He's mad, but he's also thinking, because he's remembering this story. He just heard Eleanor telling Richard about the story, or little glimpses of this story that he just relived. So he's on the other side. Once again, got his hand on his revolver. And then all of a sudden he hears a shriek, and he sees someone emerging. He sees something emerging from that cave. And in his heart, he just automatically knew that this is the last one of its kind. He just knew it. He knew it wasn't no more. He knew it was the last one of its kind in that cave, because it was long supposed to have been vacant and boarded up. Little corridors were boarded up and everything. So he's looking like, and this thing is about to attack Richard and Eleanor. So he see Richard jump in front of Eleanor and try to protect her as best as he could from this thing that was coming up on him. And as these two were getting closer to the edge, walking back from this thing, as Richard was squaring up to fight this thing, as the thing was trying to attack, so John sees this and feeling like he owed these two a debt, because he felt like that he drove Eleanor, Tamara, to her death back in the previous life. And he had her so scared that she ran away from him in the previous life. And basically he ruined these two people's lives. So as he's thinking about he ruined these two people's life, he takes aim, bow, and he shoots once, killing the creature, taking the creature out. And that's how that story ends. So I really, this story had my mind blown. You guys, you need to go and check it out. It's on the public domain, so just go ahead and type in People of the Dark, okay? Mind-blowing story. That way you'll get more and more details than I had. It's whew. Okay, so what I get from this story is I get so much from this story besides romance and crazy romance on top of that. But previous lives. So, ooh, this here just showed you basically to, I don't know, deal with what's for you, or to take in what's for you. Don't try to take other people's things and then you end up in caves trying to hide, and you end up in caves fighting somebody and trying to hide. See, people can't enjoy what they have. See, Vaderix couldn't enjoy Tamara. He couldn't enjoy her because somebody wanted her and they wasn't going to take no for an answer, to the point where they drove everybody to their death. Like, even themselves trying to get this woman, So, and as well as the moral, another thing of the story is you never know, hating each other for what? I don't know what them two hated, what he was hating that guy for, because he was a Brit and he was a black hair Gaelies, he was a black hair Gael, and then that was a Briton, so they didn't, who knows, but it turns out they would have been cool. They was fighting cool together. They were fighting best together. They were fighting really good together. They was coming up with escape routes together. They put their heads together. So, like, it was no reason to be hating each other. They both were just out here trying to live life, So that was, and I just think it's just so awesome that he thought, man, I screwed these two life up. Let me save them. Pow. Let me, I got to fix it. He wanted to make amends for what he did. Like, I think that is so cool. That's a dope part of the story. Or that's a dope ending to the story. That is a great story. Okay, so, but I thought this was an interesting story. Past life mixed with, new life mixed with the past life. Like, at first I was thrown off, like, who the heck is Conan? Like, where did this dude come from? Like, I had to sit there, and before I went on through the other half of the book, I'm like, let me sit here and grasp my mind with this really quick. I had to go back through some parts, because I'm like, how did we get to Conan? Because I was half reading. I was like, let me go back and pay attention. So, but yeah, this story has a lot of turns, this story has some plots, some twists, some turns, love, romance, fighting. This is an awesome story. A race of beings that's no longer here or extinct, and that they were against. Oh my gosh. So it's like, it's either we stick together. Well, dang, we got to stick together. We're humans. Versus these creatures. I don't know why it's not like that anyway. Period. Like, we're the human race. What is the problem? Like, the human race, stick with human race, right? But no, we somewhere else with all this stuff. Like, while they all out here laughing at us, maybe some of them are invisible. They laughing like, look at them arguing with each other. Let them argue. But anyway, so, but it's a great story, you guys. Go and check it out. Add your 2 cents. Let's talk about it in the comment section, because it's actually not that long. So if you want to be more detailed than hearing it from me, you can go and read it and come back here and let's talk about it. Get in the comment section below. Tell me what you guys think about the story. What was your favorite part? What would you have done if you were Conan, or if you were Vaderix? Like, what would you have done? So let's talk about it down below. Get in that comment section. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, as well as that notification bell. That way you can tell when I'm back with another story. Back at it again, All right, you guys, make sure you stay tuned. We're gonna have more books. We're gonna have more stories for you guys coming up soon. So make sure you stay tuned. Make sure you do, and make sure you make that comment. All right, so I can pin the best one at the top. You know what I'm saying? And remember to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell, as well as that like button. All right, so let's talk about it. You guys have a wonderful week. Great day. I'll see you soon.